Do you remember the landmarks of your works at that time?
I don't really. I have to force myself to think about landmarks in work because at this time, my main consideration, I continued to act because I didn't know what else to do and I had to earn my living. And I acted as well as I could. But I considered that to continue to act without being able to arrive at a decision as to the political way forward was useless. I became to a certain extent paralyzed in trying to fight to find some political answers. I think I did, if I looked back at the cuttings and press cuttings and so on, I suppose we would find that I did quite considerable work at this period.
Yes, considerable. The prime of Miss Jean Brodie. In 1966, Morgan. Before that, marriage to director Tony Richardson. Blow Up in 1967. Antonioni's film. The same year, Camelot. In 68, Charge of the Light Brigade and Isadora. Then The Seagull, Franco Nero, Cato Street, Mary Queen of Scots and Agatha, Yanks, Carlo, and a triumph in New York and London in Lady from the Sea.
It was an act which was intended to rob the unions of their independent strength and to bring them completely into the grip of the state. Because this was a terrific crisis, the dollar coming off gold. There was a postman's strike in 1971. The strike lasted a number of weeks. The support for the postmen was very great. Their wages were very, very low, and they were demanding a wage increase. And they launched a campaign. I responded to this campaign. I went out with people I knew into the streets around where I lived. I helped raise money for their strike fund because they didn't have a strike fund. But the postmen's strike was defeated because the leadership of the postmen's union sold it out to the Tory government. And in my union, the Actors' Union, the bureaucracy issued a leaflet telling the membership our profession is in danger. The Industrial Relations Act threatens us as trade unionists and as professionals. I read this, it came to me. I was working in a film that Ken Russell was directing at the time, The Devils. I asked other actors and actresses who I knew had been at a union meeting that I had not been present at, what had happened at that meeting, had any decisions been made, what were we going to do about this? Because it said our profession in peril.
Yes.
Peril is a strong word. You read it, you think, if we're in peril, we're going to have to fight. Right, what are we going to do? I asked the other people in the cast and the film what took place at this meeting, and they said, well, no, nothing took place. It was suggested we should write letters to our members of parliament. Nothing. Nothing at all. We ought to do something. So I rang up my brother Colin, who was already a member of the party, the Workers' Revolutionary Party. I was at this time reading the daily paper, and I was having a number of discussions with my brother about what was taking place, what the Tories were doing, what was their strategy, what must be the strategy in opposition to the Tories' strategy. And my brother and the party were saying the Tory government has to be brought down. And I concluded the policy was absolutely correct. That if the unions were to be defended from the attacks of a Tory government, you must fight to bring down the government that was trying to impose these policies. And equally, if the Tory government was attacking the Irish workers in Northern Ireland, brutalising them through the Royal Ulster Constabulary and through the regiments and through so on. Equally, that Tory government must be brought down, and I said so at that meeting. But it wasn't until the following year, when I was invited by some members who lived locally near my house, they called round and they said, we're holding a pageant. We're going to hold a pageant at Wembley Stadium, which holds 10,000 people. Will you buy tickets? So I bought tickets for this pageant. I was very impressed by the history that I saw unfolded in front of me. I was also very impressed by the way this was presented. Teams of actors had gone to different regions all over Britain and had worked with workers in that area who had joined them in rehearsals and preparing a script around each of these 4 major turning points in the history of the working class. The miners had sent down bands to participate, props had been built, a train had been built. Tremendous display, and great big television screen for those who were sitting way at the back of the hall and could only not see very well. They could see cameras were there around the action, and what the cameras were shooting, it was an Ida4 system, was relayed on this enormous giant screen so that you could see in close-up what in fact you couldn't see. And when I saw this, and taking all the events that were happening, the attacks of the Tory government, the imprisonment of workers because they were defying the government's laws by going on strike. I was so impressed by the way the party was fighting, that it had a daily paper, that it was giving leadership to trade unionists who were confronting the major problem of having a leadership that wouldn't fight the Tories, that I decided I must join this party.